Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's session of Dr. Spotfire. My name is Neil Canungo, and I am your host. Today, we're going to be talking about the basics of custom visualizations. So I got a few intro slides here to get going. Now, again, in the past, we did these polls on what topics you wanted to see more of. The top two were visualization best practices and custom visualizations. So today we are going to be doing custom visualizations. We're going to be talking about Spotfire mods visualizations. It's part of Spotfire 11. And this is a JavaScript framework. It's been a top requested item in the ideas portal. And let me go ahead and later in the session, I'll give a little bit of an overview and we'll hand off to our feature speaker. Our feature speaker today is Andrew Barrage. Andrew is a total expert in Spotfire. You may have seen him in previous Dr. Spotfires when he showed JSViz. He's also done some other topics, and he's even written a book on Spotfire. So Andrew, we're very pleased to have Andrew on. Andrew is actually based in Kent in southeastern England. And interesting fact about Andrew is he actually lives in a windmill in Kent. And so he'll be presenting today from his windmill home. Now, I have a few slides just going quickly into mods before I hand over to Andrew. Just wanted to give kind of an overview of what this is. And this is a lightweight framework. It's cloud ready. It works with streaming data and memory data and database data. And it supports visualization mods. The first release of mods supports visualizations. And this is something that mods is again a framework that can be extended beyond visualizations, but right now we're going to be talking about just custom visualizations. These visualizations are different from the JSViz extension because this is all part of Spotfire 11 now, and the visualizations operate like native Spotfire visualizations. Comes right out of your visualization flyout and works natively again with things like streaming and the web player, cloud, everything. It's easily distributed and deployed. You can build it with simple APIs, which we'll talk about today. You can consume from any source, and you can run on any Spotfire client and environment. So a couple more slides here. Wanted to point out that visualization mods are not just for advanced analysts. These are for consumers and business users, web developers. There's a wide variety of things that you can do with these. But if you're not comfortable with JavaScript, you're not comfortable coding, you can still use these visualizations. They can be deployed to your library, again, which we'll talk about in a second, and anyone can use these. So this session is focused on how do you use mods, how do you access mods other people have built, and then we'll go a little bit into the setup of the mods authoring environment. An example of a mod, this has been a very hot requested visualization, is candlestick charts for stock charts and stock market analysis, financial market analysis. So this is a visualization mod that's been created. There's also an area chart you see here in the center. We'll go behind the scenes on the area chart today. And you can even get really advanced, do things like network charts and network analyses with these network visualizations. So again, mods is easily distributed and deployed. It is built into a mod file. You can put it into your library. You can just drag and drop it into Spotfire, and then you can actually pin it to your visualization flyout, and then it can be easily accessed right like any other native visualization in Spotfire. It's also automatically updated. So if you update a visualization, like here on the right, you see the radar chart. If an update's made to a new version of radar chart that maybe fills in these polygons, then that will actually push out to all the other visualizations, all the other occurrences of visualizations and the other analyses, if that's what you want. So updating one will push out to and automatically update to the other TXPs. With that, I am going to I'm just going to show you some really basic introduction of using mods. So what I'm going to do is, so here I already have a couple mods pinned here. And to create mods, to add mods, you can you can see this little 3 dots. You can go to find visualizations in the library. And this will go and it'll search for the mod visualizations that are stored in your library that you have access to. So these are the ones that are in my library. Now, if I wanted to, here, I'll show you how this looks in the library. You really just drop this into a folder that you have access to. So I have a folder here, my library folder, and it can be a group level. Maybe it's something that you and your team are developing and you only want to keep it to your group. It uses all the library permissions. So that can be limited to just your group, or if it wants to be top level for your whole organization, you can put it at the top level. So you just have the visualizations in your library. And then when you go and you want to add something to this flyout, you go to find that visualization, and you can maybe go and here you can pin if you'd like to pin it. So you can open it directly if you don't want to pin it, you just want it for a one-time use, or you can pin it, and then that will put it here in your flyout. And then using this is simple. It's just like any other visualization. So I just hit area chart. This is looking at COVID-19 data. And let's say I want to look at, different, let's say, new cases. And I want to see this by maybe continent or something. Here we go. So just like any other visualization, the markings, you can see it's already highlighting. The markings are automatic. You can see the dates and everything here over time. If I want to see this stacked, I can change it to a stacked view. So you have these options. You also have the configuration options in the visualization properties like other Spotfire visualizations. So Andrew's going to go a little bit behind the scenes on how this is created. I think with this, Andrew, why don't I go ahead and hand it over to you, and you can kick off your part of the session.
Okay, thanks very much, Neil. Coming to you from a windmill somewhere in Kent. Deepest, darkest Kent, should I say, because it actually is dark right now. Anyway, I don't really like virtual backgrounds, so I'm going to turn that off. Just give me a second.
Oh, we got to see the... is that the windmill? Is that an older picture of the windmill you're in?
An older picture, yes. In its heyday. Sadly, it's missing its sales these days. Right, okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so the mod examples that you get with Spotfire, you can download them from GitHub. Unfortunately, right now they're not pre-built. So in order to use those mod examples, you do have to build them. However, the build process is very straightforward, and I'm going to talk about the prerequisites that you need and how to get started and how to build things. So on here is a link to GitHub and the Getting Started guide. So if we start off with the Getting Started guide, you can see these prerequisites and things you need to install. So obviously you need Spotfire. You also need a code editor. Now we recommend that you use Microsoft Visual Studio Code. It's important to note that that's not Visual Studio. Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code are two different products. So you just go and download it here and then install that in the same way as any other Windows application. And then you also need Node.js. Now Node.js is like a server-sided JavaScript thing that can serve JavaScript files. So you need to install Node.js. So here again is the link to Node.js, and you would just click on this installer and then install Node.js on your system. Then the final prerequisite you need is the GitHub repo with the examples in it that we've published. So you can go here and you can just go to code and download the zip file. Then when you extract that onto your filing system, you can then open things in code. So let me just go to the examples folder. So here's the download of the files from our GitHub repository, and in here are the examples. So what do you say we start off with the bar chart then, Neil?
Yeah, I think that's a good one because it's a kind of a baseline, right? Where they can see the basics, right? It's a good kind of example one. A bar chart obviously already exists in Spotfire, but this is a good way to kind of reference what's happening under the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. So if I open this with code, you can just right click on the folder and open with code. Now in Visual Studio Code, you let me get to the right one. There's lots of them actually, so I've got too many open as usual. Okay, here we go. All right. So with Visual Studio Code, you don't really have the concept of a project. It just opens that folder in Visual Studio Code, and then you can look at all the different parts of a mod. So the most important part is the source folder. So this is a source folder that contains all the different parts that go into building your mod. We have an index.html, which is just an HTML file that Spotfire will load, and it contains the loader to load the Spotfire API that mods uses, and also a link to the source of your JavaScript visualization. So here's that source. And in here are all the things around accessing the data from Spotfire and rendering your visualization, handling marking, and all those kind of things. Obviously, you can have styles as well and stuff like that. Also under this source file folder is the mod manifest. Now, the mod manifest tells Spotfire what to expect from this mod and configures up lots of things. So you can see the name is a bar chart, you see the version and the API version it uses, all those kind of things. And then the properties of that you can define on a visualization, like in this case it's got the y-axis mode, or whether you're using split bars, for example.
So the manifest is the instructions for Spotfire to interpret the mod. The main is kind of the guts of everything. And then the icon SVG there, which is I assume that's just the icon for how Spotfire shows it.
Yes.
So
yeah, exactly. So in this case, it's that bar chart.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah. Okay. So, and then you've also got the data view definition. Now, in Spotfire, we're used to dealing with data tables, but with a mod, we have what's called a data view, and that's an aggregated data view of your data. So by default, all data going to a mod is aggregated. So within the data view definition, we define things like the different axes. So we've got a color axis, we've got an x-axis and a y-axis. The color axis is something special. I don't need to go into it now, but it's treated slightly different from the other axes. And you can change the configuration of all these things once you get into mods development. It's also
these definitions. Yeah, so these definitions of these are so where are these included in the folders? Is that coming with the mod schema, right?
Yes. So the definition of this XML file is in here. You won't ever need to go into here, but it tells Visual Studio Code some of the things that you can do. So if I add here, I can start typing, and there's lots of there's autocomplete. That's one of the advantages of the Visual Studio gives you. So it will autocomplete the things you can enter. So I can change this to allow non-aggregating measures. So you can actually put the raw data into it, but just still remember that it's a data view, not a data table. Okay, as far as the development is concerned. So once I have loaded the folder into Visual Studio Code, I can then build this example. It's pretty easy, actually. So under here, there's one more thing to show you, actually. This is the only other thing you really need right now to know about, is this node modules folder. That node modules folder is not shipped with the examples, but it contains all the it contains all the modules that Node.js needs in order to run the example. And this simple example, all it needs is a simple web server. So what I'm going to do is run the build tasks. Now, each mod has different mods have slightly different tasks to run and build the mod. But for this one, I can just run npm and install. Now what that's doing is it's downloading all those Node.js prerequisites. So it's completely automatic. Once it's done that, then everything's good, and I can now run this example. So I'm not.
So what's npm here? Is the
node. Yeah, good
yeah.
question, Neil. npm is Node Package Manager.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes against the global repository of all the Node packages, and it will download the packages that are defined in the packages for this example, and that is included here. So this will tell you which dependencies you need to develop, but again, you don't really need to touch this file. That's just telling the Node Package Manager which packages to download.
Great. So you need an internet connection in order to.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah, you definitely do. Right. And maybe I should mention, if you ship source code around, you should never ship this node modules folder around because it gets really big. So just exclude that when you ship code, or don't check it into your source code repository or whatever you want to do. Just don't send this node modules folder around. Okay. So I've run the npm install, and so now I'm just going to run npm server. Now some of these mods come with a pre-built thing that will also download and install all in one step, but I like to do it manually to download the packages and then run the server. You've got more control over that, and it's also better to learn what's going on. Okay, so now my mod example is being served at this URL, so I can now connect up to that inside Spotfire. So let me connect to that project, development server. You'll see it's automatically filled in the URL I wanted to use. You need to check this terminal folder, this terminal window actually, because sometimes if you're running multiple instances of Visual Studio Code, or you're developing multiple mods at once, or you've already using that port for something else, then the web server will come on a different port. So you need to just double check that.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I've had different mods open at the same time, and so I mean, this, just to clarify, this is spinning up this this node locally, and so you're connecting locally from your Spotfire analyst, correct? And you can only connect to one at a time, one development server at a time. Maybe if you can take a quick pause and go right back here, and you can show how you even get to this window. I think we might have glazed over that. Maybe I just missed it. It's in the tools folder, right? The tools menu, right?
Yes. So there's a very, very good point. Well, you can develop multiple mods at once, but when you run a second instance of the web server, it will run against a different port, and you need to manually specify that port when you connect to that project. But just let me go back right to the beginning. So here, there's a new menu.
Well, we should probably show them how to. They also need to turn that menu on, also. Right?
Yes. Yeah, they do, which I will show. But doesn't this one here show without that development menu on, Neil? I'm not certain.
I'm not certain either. I thought that whole development menu. I mean, just for the users, if you don't see this, you can go into the options, tools options, and you go all the way down. Right there to show development menu. Make sure that box is checked.
You really wanted to, Neil, you really want to check that anyway when you're developing mods, because it's super helpful. And maybe we'll get some time to show why a bit later on, but you get all sorts of debugging tools, which I certainly use all the time when I'm developing mods. So so you turn on this develop menu. I mean, I have it enabled by default, which is why I'm not sure whether these things show up. But you definitely need to turn it on to get these developer tools.
And you'll have to any of those settings and those options you have to change. Just quick FYI for the users, you'll have to restart Spotfire Analyst for those changes to take place. So if you check in the box, restart Analyst, and then sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
No worries, Neil. That's exactly what you got to do. So if I create a new visualization mod and connect to the project, development server, connect, and now you see it's loaded my bar chart mod. So I can do all my development and debugging, and one of the nice things with this is that I can go back and change any of my source code um, and Spot. You don't even need to press reload or anything like that. Spotfire will automatically pick up the latest changes. So I could, for example, do console. This enables me to kill two birds with one stone. Actually, console.log. That's my favorite. Click save. You'll see a change was detected. And then if I go back here and go tools, development, developer tools, now I have the Chrome developer tools running, and you can see hello world without me having to do anything. So this is how you get to the Chrome developer console. You can also inspect the elements on the screen, so you can see that each of these is an SVG object, and you can go through all. That's one SVG. It's a div, I believe. Yeah, see, we've got the divs within the canvas. Those are just bits of the
just
HTML.
to help you, debug and understand what's happening, right? So as you hover over these elements, it highlights. So Spotfire is rendering a web page, right? It's rendering this,
exactly.
this HTML, and what part of the HTML, that's what's happening behind the scenes of a Spotfire dashboard, Spotfire visualizations. But what elements are going where, and that's where this is useful. So you can see, it's this element is going to this part of the visualization, right?
Exactly. So you can even see the individual bars that's been rendered.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's part of that bar chart. So yeah, use these developer tools all the time. They are your best friend. Okay. So how are we doing for time, Neil? Do you want me to go a bit more into the details? Oh, one thing I'll just show is just publishing this to the library, right? Because I've developed this. It's all done. I'm done and dusted. So now I can click here again. Before I can save it to the library or as a local file, I need to disconnect. And now I can save it to the library. So I just go and save it in here. And then it's going to be available for other people to use.
Right. And then if you save it as a local file, that's going to generate the mod file, right? And then you could, so this will generate the Spotfire mod file, and you could just send this to another person or put it up on your blog or something if you want, right?
Yes, exactly.
In this way, if you just put it up on your blog or whatever, then essentially people can download this. They can add it to their own Spotfire environment. Again, if you're working within your organization, you can just put this on the library and everyone in your organization can have it. But if you're trying to share it outside of your organization, outside of your Spotfire server environment, then you could have this mod file. You could host it kind of anywhere. But once this gets packaged up, now correct my understanding here, Andrew. Once this gets packaged up, it's a lot harder to go into it and change things, right? If you want to actually change the mod, you really want all of those folders. There's JavaScript for the whole JavaScript package that you have, and that is, and maybe you can actually show a little bit of that as well on GitHub on where people can download the mods we already have up there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's so yes. Those are all in this GitHub repo, right? So this is how you would download these examples and build them, and then ship them.
Yeah. So a little. Sorry to interrupt there. Just there's a handful of mods here for the users. These are all folders with everything needed to launch a development instance of these mods. So these are not mod files. This is all the folders. Now, if you go up to download it, if you go to the parent there and then that green button that says code, that's how you can download all of those all together. So this is from the GitHub, our GitHub repo, the TIBCO's GitHub repo, and you can download a zip with all of those mods. And in each of those mods as well, they have instructions on how to launch them and how to start developing them, right?
They do. I think we completely glossed over, Neil. there's
documentation.
Documentation. Yeah, you don't need documentation. Documentation's for wimps. Anyway, what we've got here also via GitHub is the documentation for developing mods. So I initially referred you to the Getting Started guide. And then there's also information about the API and how you would do that and how you would use it. So one of the two key, there are two key steps really with developing a mod, at least to get started. So the first one is you need to read the data from Spotfire, and the second thing you need to do is render your visualization into Spotfire. I mean, we're hoping to do a more in-depth example later on, but let me just show you a little bit about how that works. So let me get rid of Slack. I should have killed that earlier. Anyway, so there's a couple of things. So when you get the data from Spotfire, you've all this basically. Whenever I develop a mod, I never do it from scratch. I always take an existing example, one that's already been configured, and then modify it to do what I want to do. So there is a data reader, and you can subscribe to that. And here is the render function that gets called every time the data changes or the settings change or anything like that. So you can then get the data from Spotfire. So in this case, the x-axis is hierarchical. So that would in hierarchy can just be flat, so it can be just a single value per x value, or it could be a date, so you could have all the different nodes and leaves of that axis. And here's where you can get the the data from the y-axis that corresponds to those values in the y-axis. And then you can just render. In this case, it's a very simple thing. It's just this one's just rendering divs on the canvas. So you basically got the data, and then you've rendered it inside Spotfire.
And for the users and the audience members, like we realize this is a lot of information that's we're kind of unloading here. We're not expecting you to be able to understand every element of the scripting from this session. We are going to do a follow-up session first Tuesday in January. And we're going to go more into like how you actually script and how you build this all from scratch. So we really wanted to talk about the foundational level, what's going on, what are the major components of mods. That's what today is for. But this is a big topic, right? So we'll,
it's a huge topic. Yeah, but actually it's very, very easy to get started. I should just mention very quickly, if people want to get started immediately, they're itching to start. I know I would be. Let me just talk a tiny bit about the area chart, because that's my favorite.
Yeah,
it's definitely my favorite example. And why this is interesting is it's using D3.js. Now, a lot of people that develop in JavaScript, a lot of people develop in JavaScript. A lot of people that develop in JavaScript use D3. I use D3 in the main for all my JavaScript visualizations. And this example is built using D3. Now there is some setup for developing with D3 in the mod, but luckily the area chart has it all done for you. But I just like to just quickly demonstrate the build process for this, because it's a little bit different. So you'll notice, and the structure of it. So you notice it's got this source directory. It's also got a static directory, and it's also got a dist directory. Now, what happens is we use, in this example, we use something called Webpack. I don't need to go into the details of what that is, but basically Webpack will build all your source folders and things into your dist directory. So everything, D3.js, all your source code. You can also use this for TypeScript if anybody's into TypeScript. You can use it for maybe doing Angular or React, or I'm just throwing all these buzzwords out there. So it will help you do all those things. So the build process for the area chart, what you want to do is you want to do npm install as before. So that will download Webpack, and download D3.js. It will download everything that you need in order to build and run this. Then there's another task you need to run, which is let me show all tasks. npm build watch. So this will build your JavaScript into a single bundle file that Spotfire can then consume, and that's your bundle.js. And then the final one is running npm server. So what you've done is you've installed the prerequisites, you've built everything, and you're now able to consume it in Spotfire, just the same as I did with the bar chart example. And that's a really nice way of getting started with D3. And then your D3 code is very similar to what you would get from a D3 example on the web, except for you need to read the data and look at the data and transform it into a format that your example visualization needs.
And I think this will be a really great topic to go deeper on the next session, because there are so many different libraries, there are so many different ways to do this. I'm very new to JavaScript. I've only done some light JavaScript in the past, so I mean, I'm learning a lot of this as well, as I'm sure our some of our audience is. And you know, one thing that might be good, I'm going to kind of throw out there is it might be good if the audience, if you get a chance, you know, maybe over the holidays, you got some downtime, or you know, through the work week, if you want to go ahead and download. You can download it if you don't have access to Spotfire 11 yet. You can always download a trial for free if you want to get going with mods and start testing that out. But then you also try to download maybe the bar chart or some of the other examples from the GitHub repo and start playing with things and see where you get stuck. And then in the next session, we can have more of an open discussion to answer questions and see where people get stuck. We anticipate there will be a lot of questions, and we can start to shift this more towards like an office hours experience. I did put a link to that GitHub repo and the documentation into the chat, into the Zoom webinar chat at the top, so you can bookmark that.
Yeah. We do actually have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking we'd pivot over to some questions here. You know, we're coming up on time here, and so answer a few questions, and then we can kind of conclude today. So. You know, I got some good questions. I got a question on, you know, does the mods requirements need to be installed on the Spotfire server nodes too, or is it just a development node? Well, mods, Node.js and Visual Studio Code, this is all installed on your workstation, your desktop. So whatever the web player needs, whatever the Spotfire server needs to handle mods, it's coming with Spotfire 11. You don't need to worry about all of that. And our mod's only available in the desktop version. We are showing authoring with the desktop version, but it's available. You can actually use this in the web author, the business author, authoring in the web as well as just a consumer to use these.
Yeah, and you can consume mods on the web anyway, can't you now?
Right, exactly. So
yeah.
We're showing in the analyst, but you can add them to visualizations business author or just consume them again. Yeah, exactly. You know, Doug Johnson, one of our support engineers, put a question in here. He has a very good question. Do the documentations list the URLs that must be whitelisted if you're behind a firewall or proxy? So when you need to download the when you're doing your npm install and you need to download these files from the internet, do we know if that's in the documentation? I haven't checked.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. You do need access to the npm package repository.
Right.
That's
right. So that might need to be whitelisted at your organization, and we will double check on that. It's a great question.
Yeah,
double check, make sure that's in the documentation. Someone asked really great question around how much control does a developer have over all the details in the visualization, and specifically they asked about placing a legend anywhere in the visualization. So I think this might be a good chance to touch on like the different classes and what's available in authoring.
Yeah, so you don't currently have control over where the legend can be placed, because with JS Viz, you would have full control over placement of your visualization. That's the community extension that we released some time ago for Spotfire. Because the reason for that is that if you wanted a legend, you'd have to construct that legend yourself. What mods does is use the existing Spotfire legend. So you get that for free. So you don't have to develop your own visualization or your own legends. You don't have to develop your own axis selectors, all those things. You just get those for free with Spotfire. But of course, that doesn't give you the full flexibility with that. But if you want flexible legend placement, then please go on the ideas portal and make sure you vote up that idea. I know there's one on there already for that.
Right.
So no, you don't have full control over that, but you've basically got full control over everything that goes on in the canvas. And I suppose if you really wanted to, you could tell people to turn the legend off and develop your own legend that floats over the top.
Yeah. And kind of a little bit on that topic, which maybe we'll do this in the third session as we keep going deeper on this, if I can keep stealing your time, Andrew. But these mods is more than just visualizations, and you can do all kinds of crazy things with the text areas. You can embed Angular, right? You can use Angular apps. So there's a lot that you can do.
I've done some quite cool interactive UIs using React, for example.
Right. So like a lot more UI control than was previously available.
Exactly.
Last question here is about mainstream and LTS. So yes, Spotfire 11 is a mainstream version. It's not an LTS. And the question was, does TIBCO recommend that you go from an LTS to a mainstream to go to Spotfire 11? The answer is that we can't tell you, we can't answer that question. That is best determined by your administrators, your organization. We can provide you the information that you need to make that decision. The LTS are the long-term support versions. Mainstream are released a lot faster, but are only supported one at a time, meaning when the next mainstream version comes out, when Spotfire 11.1 comes out, then Spotfire 11.0 will go out of support. Of course, we want you to keep upgrading and stay with the mainstream. We would love it if everyone could have all the latest and greatest features, but it's kind of a trade-off decision between the administrators and what your organization is willing to support. Now, if your organization has not provided you access to Spotfire 11, maybe they're waiting, we have to wait till 2021, 2022, what have you. You can always download that trial. You can put in your personal email if you need to, but download the trial version of Spotfire, and then you can get going with it that way. So my closing slides. Just wanted to mention a quick plug for Andrew here. Andrew has, again, written this great Spotfire comprehensive primer book. And Andrew, you're considering writing another book, right? A follow-up with...
Yep. I want to write a book on how to develop custom visualizations and work with big data with visualizations. So watch this space. Hopefully I'll get some time to do that next year.
I know you have lots to share. I know a lot of people on this call will definitely be interested in that content. So no pressure, but we're all waiting on you. So,
Thanks, Neil.
And then I forgot to edit this slide the right way. The next session, not today's feature session, the next session, we'll do Mods 102, the first Tuesday in January in the new year, and we'll start showing some scripting guidance. Andrew will return to shed his valuable wisdom for all of us. Again, consider going ahead and trying the, let me stop this share. Consider going ahead and trying the mods yourself, the bar charts, and see what questions you come up with. If you finish a mod, you want to submit it, you want to put it on the exchange, you can go ahead and email it to us at drspotfire@tibco.com, and we'll see what approvals we can do to get your mod hosted on the exchange. We're also thinking of doing some modathons next year and some mod competitions, so you can kind of flex your skills, win some prizes, win some accolades. So some exciting stuff happening in 2021. Everyone, it's been a great year. Thank you so much for joining Dr. Spotfire through 2020. A lot of crazy stuff this year, but we've had some really exciting releases. We've had some really good sessions, really great user interaction, and love seeing you guys in the Facebook groups and the Reddit groups all participating. So thank you so much. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your year. Have a happy holidays. And thank you for joining. Andrew, thank you as well.